Hi everybody. So, welcome back to Becoming Untethered, and today is day 9 of a month of letting go. So, this month we're talking about letting go, and naturally, if we're letting go of something, there is something to which we are holding on, and that's what we're going to kind of go into deeper this week, because we hold on to shit, and they're called attachments, preferences, wants, not wants, but they're not just that. They actually shape how we view reality. They dictate how we respond to life and how we experience our emotions, why we experience the emotions that we do, and when we experience them. These like hidden forces, they create energetic blockages, and they distort our perception, and they cause repetitive emotional and behavioral patterns. Does anybody else know a little bit about those? Because I certainly do. So the thing is, though, to understand how to let go, we have to grasp the full extent of how attachments entangle us in suffering. I keep getting these texts, and I don't want to get distracted. Frankly. All right, there we go. So attachments. We want to understand the nature of what it is we're holding on to, why we're holding on to it, and how we're holding on to it, so that we can let it go. Now, it would be great if we could just say, and let it go, which theoretically we should be able to do, but that's much more difficult. Easier said than done, right? So let's kind of discuss what an attachment is. These things are, they're conditions we place on our happiness. I can only be happy if this happens this way. I can only be happy if this person likes me. I can only be happy if this thing doesn't happen. And then we start creating these things. Crap, I'm going to start coughing. Then we start creating these things that aren't even reality, because we start thinking, well, what if this thing happens? What if that person doesn't like me? What are they thinking over there? We're not even dealing with reality. We're just making shit up and suffering because of it. It doesn't make any sense. We all do it, but it doesn't make sense. So I'm going to use my life as an example, as I so often do. I'm not psyched about the idea that, well, the fact that I live at my parents' condo and I sleep on the living room floor. I don't like it. I don't like it. Now, I recognize fully that in order to be happy, I need to accept it, which I think I've accepted it. I think. Well, but there is still a large part of me that thinks that this shouldn't be like this. I should have my own place. I'm not really an adult. I should be ashamed of myself. All these things that cause suffering and don't help the situation. If anything, they make it worse, not just by the emotions that come up, but also by the fact they keep me emotionally stuck, and I find it harder to do things to change the situation. But we'll get further into that later. Let's just say I'm not a fan, and there are moments, there are days where I'm like, it's okay. It is what it is. It's a good thing for now. I'm glad to be around my parents right now, so I can see things they need, so that when I leave, we know what they need. And I can help right now, and it's a good thing that I'm here. It's a good thing that I can work. See, this is good. It's a good thing I can work on myself. It's a good thing I can work on this, where I wouldn't be able to do that if I had my own place and had to go to a 9-to-5 or something like that. But I still every day I'm thinking, most days I'm thinking, oh, it's gonna be so great when I have my own place. I don't have any privacy, la 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 la. Point is, I have attachments to how I think things should be. They aren't that way, and I'm not happy about it. Does that help the situation? It does not. So when we attach ourselves to these specific outcomes, we tie our emotional state to things that are outside of our control. Now, granted, this in a way is inside my control, because I can get out of it based on certain behaviors I could or could not do. But right now, in this moment, this is where I am. There's nothing I can really do about it in this moment. So because of that, because of the attachments I have, my emotional state, I get angry, I get pissy. I mean, which is kind of not two separate things, but two different versions of the same thing. I snap at people who don't deserve it, so that's not great. So we're just setting ourselves up for inevitable disappointment and suffering. Now, the things that we hold on to also shape our perception. It's like putting some glasses on, right? Like rose-colored glasses or black-colored glasses or yellow colored glasses or green, whatever. Why did I go into the colors? I don't know. All I'm saying is that it's like a lens that we're seeing the world through. We're distorting reality, and it's to fit with our expectations. So we're not actually dealing, attachments make it so that we're not dealing with what is actually happening, right? Because, well, this person's doing this because of that. This is happening because of this. And we suffer from it. I mean, I cannot tell you how many times I have freaked out because I think someone's thinking that or this. And it's not what they're even thinking. Because later on I find out there was no reason for me to be freaking out. None. But I spent a lot of time suffering deeply because I thought this or that, right? I wasn't even dealing with what was actually happening, with actual reality. Not fun. So they they limit how we experience life, and they cause this emotional turbulence when things don't line up with our expectations, when it turns out our version of reality isn't actually reality. So they narrow our perception, and we get hyper-focused on specific outcomes. We interpret everything through the lens of these things, right? It doesn't make any sense, and yet we all do it. We can't even experience the moment as it is. It's beautiful out. I mean, it is really lovely. What time? It's like 76 degrees. There's very little humidity. Birds are singing. It's lovely out here. I mean, like, it's lovely, right? It's beautiful. It's peaceful. And yet part of me is like, motherfucker. This isn't how it should be. And granted, I mean, that's something society is telling me. And I'm telling myself. But it doesn't actually... It's reality. So... it's reality. It's just how it is. Now, when we do these things, when we hold on to one thing or another, when we attach ourselves to outcomes or to whatever, we create this also creates energy blockages. So when we hold on to something, whether it's emotionally, mentally, or energetically, usually it's all three, right? They all kind of feed into each other. We disrupt the natural flow of energy in our bodies. Now these can manifest, and I mean, you can talk about energy, blah, blah, woo, 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 but it manifests as physical energy blocks, meaning tension. We get tension in our bodies, so we hold things in. And you've experienced it, a knot in your back, or whatever, an area gets tense. And why? It's not just because you're sitting there thinking, reality is great. It's because you're upset about something, and the reason you're upset is because either you got something you didn't want, or you didn't get something you did want. It's pretty simple. But these blockages, when we experience resistance to reality, we don't want to feel these emotions. We trap those emotions, and that leads to physical and emotional suffering. It can even lead to sickness, illness, and dis-ease, right? Dis-ease. I always thought that was cool when I found that out. Like, disease is dis-ease. It makes sense. Now, why do we hold on to these things? A lot of it, most of it, comes down to fear. And one of the things we fear is losing control. for some reason we think we're in control. It's hilarious. Now, there are things we're in control of. Our emotional state, our thoughts, our actions. Those are the things we have control over, and those are the only things that we have control over. Like, you know, we've discussed a few times now, the universe is the way it is because of every single thing that's happened that comes before it. And I'm not going to go into that right now, but Michael Singer does a great job of it in Living from a Place of Surrender. Right? Yeah. Living from a Place of Surrender. It's great. He details the entire creation of the universe from the Big Bang, and everything that happened before is why what's happening now is happening. And we just need to be happy about this. This is the bit of reality we get to experience. That's it. We don't have control over any of it. But we think that we do. So when things don't go the way we want them to go, we feel like we're out of control. Or that life is out of control, and life's not the way it should be. When life is the way it is, because that's how life is. And this leads to anxiety and suffering. And does anybody else know a little bit about this? Because I certainly do. You know, the more, it's an illusion, right? Control is an illusion. The more we cling to it, the more we suffer. And letting go involves embracing the flow of life and releasing the need to control outcomes, which is really hard, but we can do it. We can do it together, guys. Come on, let's do it. I know it's right there. That's why I keep looking over there. So attachments, self-perpetuating. They keep going. It feeds itself. So the more we hold on to it, we keep reinforcing the same emotional patterns. This creates a cycle of behavior where we repeatedly cling to the same desires, feel the same disappointments, and experience the same emotional pain. Anybody? Anybody? Because that's what we do. I am where I am because of attachments I have, emotions that came from them, and the choices that came from those. And because of that, I'm sleeping on my parents' living room floor. But that's the truth. That's the truth. That's how much attachments dictate our life. We hold on to these beliefs that things should be this way and shouldn't be that way, or this is the kind of person I am, and I shouldn't be this way, and it just, we hold on to these things. And like with this one, right? Okay. Again, myself as an example. I don't deserve happiness. I don't deserve to move forward in my life. I don't deserve this or that. And then because of that belief, I behave according to that. And I don't even try. Which results in outcomes that I don't like, which I recognize as being my fault, which makes me feel like I don't deserve things because I'm a shit. Like, it just keeps going on. And once it becomes emotional, like just ingrained, right? People say, oh, just put it down. You're like, I'm gonna fucking kill you. Excuse my language, and I'm not. But it does anger me when you suggest that these things are easily put down, because they ingrain themselves physically in your brain. There are patterns that form, and your brain, and I'm not talking woo-woo stuff, I'm talking actual brain physiology. Your brain fires synapses, right? Synapses fire to create the same thought over and over again. And as that happens, it's like clearing a path in the woods, right? You're going to go, if there's a path in the woods, you're going to go down the path. You're not going to try and machete your way through woods that isn't cleared, right? You're just going to go down the path of least resistance. So not only do you have these feelings about yourself and you're reinforcing them, but your brain is now like, oh, this is the easiest way to go. It's just like, it's not fun. It's not fun, and the only way to break that is to let go. So that takes a little bit of doing. I get it. That's why we're doing this entire month on letting go, and next month is on surrender. We're covering it because I need to cover it. So the work to kind of get out of these patterns is to recognize them And you have to work consciously to release them. You have to be aware of them, which sucks because sometimes they're unconscious and subconscious and you don't know that they're actually there, and that's what fucks you up. And that is what fucked me up until, you know, I started working on myself. Like, I didn't recognize that. I mean, yeah, I knew I felt like shit, like I really didn't like myself, I knew that, but I didn't really realize. I mean, I understood the basic concept of I keep self-sabotaging, which is why I felt like shit, but I blamed myself for it, and it made me feel worse about myself. But I didn't really recognize this pattern. There's the pattern with guys, and here's the thing. Even patterns that you're aware of are so deeply ingrained in your self-conscious that even when you think, you're like, oh, I'm not going to let that happen again, and the situation presents itself, like it did that one time with that guy who was so aggressive and pushy, and I was like, oh, he's nice, he's totally fine, he's just being funny. And it took me 3 days to be like, no, he's being a douchebag. It took that long, and I was conscious of my patterns. I just didn't realize it was happening again. So your unconscious attachments, they're deeply embedded in our psyche, and because we're unaware of them, they're the hardest to let go. Because even when you're aware of them, you can be unaware that you're doing them. They influence our thoughts, they influence our behaviors and the emotions that we have. So we behave according to these things, and we don't even realize that that's what we're doing. We think we're making choices, but we're not. We're reacting to the shit that we're holding inside of ourselves that is buried so deep that we don't even realize that we have it. This is but again, this is something that I blamed myself for, but the fact of the matter is we're holding on to these things in our subconscious as a way of protecting ourselves. And that is obviously, I mean, most of it comes from childhood, right? The formative years, we think we're protecting ourselves by thinking this or that. And that's a whole different discussion about why that happens. But we grew up with a pattern that maybe even helped us at some point, but is not useful now. But they're in there, and letting go of them is scary because we think that they are what's keeping us alive. At a very base level, it's our amygdala. It's not at our conscious level. You know, it's you know, my pattern of choosing men that I know that I'm not going to be able to get the love I want out of, whether it's because they're douchebags or because they're just the situation I recognize as something that's not going to end well. Like my last boyfriend, who I loved deeply, but I knew from the beginning that it couldn't work out. I mean, it was stated clearly to me. We cannot get married was the statement from the beginning. And yet, but I'm really grateful for the relationship I am. I'm very grateful for that relationship. But I'm just saying that that's the sort of thing I put myself into because of these psychological things that I am aware of, but still, even just awareness itself doesn't necessarily mean let goingness, right? Awareness is half the battle, but there's still battle to be fought. And because it gets so deep in there, that even self-awareness isn't going to completely do the deed of letting go. Because, why? Because we start defining ourselves by these attachments. They become our psyche and our identity. They're who we think we are, right? Like, I'm the person that this happened to. I'm the person who does this, you know, and we become, it's the structure that happens where we're holding these attachments. Because again, it's physical. It is physical and energetic. Whatever you want to believe about energy, it is there. But you can believe whatever you want. There are physical blocks in our body. That is energy that we're holding on to. That is our emotion, because emotions are energy. And they create, it's our own special little pattern where the energy is trying to flow through, but it doesn't get to flow through, or whatever it is you want to call it. Things aren't flowing the way they should. And that pattern is what we call me. I am, and you know what? I get a lot of those. I get a lot of them. One of the most obvious ones to me is not just the need to be right. Yeah, no, it's the need to be right. I mean, the need to know stuff. I do not state things as fact until I know that they are fact, because the idea of being wrong is horrifying to me. You know, I do not. I get, and I can feel it. If it is implied I don't know something, especially if I do know it, I get really tense, and I need people to know that I know that. I know that. Even if I'm aware of it and I'm like, okay, don't be an asshole about it. Oh no, I totally know that. Yeah, I did this, I did that. But it's something, it's a thing for me. It's definitely a thing for me. I need to be right. And when I'm wrong, it's a deep blow to my self-esteem, because it threatens my psyche. It threatens my identity, who I am. And this is this sum of our preferences, our desires, and our fears. And that's why letting go can feel so threatening. And this is something we're going to talk about a lot next week, because it's dismantling who we think we are. The psyche wants to survive. It's a survival thing. And that's why I hold on to these things, because letting go of them feels like death. Again, subconscious level, very base, reptilian brain, amygdala response. We know psychologically, like mentally, that we're not going to die from letting this thing go or that thing go. But our psyche, our brain, our subconscious, our unconscious think it's death. So it becomes very hard to release. It's a matter of survival. So because it's a protective mechanism, it keeps going, but the reality is it's not protecting us. It's causing suffering. And understanding this, again, we'll talk a lot about this, is something that can help us understand why letting go is so hard, and not blame ourselves for it, for not being able to, because we're not being able to yet, because it's not just about releasing a preference. It's about releasing a piece of who we think we are. But again, from our very first day, who are we? Are we our preferences? Are we our wants and not wants? Are we our thoughts? Are we our feelings? No. The answer is we are the being that is observing all of that. The conscious witness, right? And another thing that we kind of hold on to is the cultural and social attachments, which I have sort of alluded to earlier, where, for example, I live at my parents', and that is not culturally or socially acceptable. And that is something very deeply ingrained in me. And it really fucks with my feelings of self-esteem and feelings of being a real adult and being able to take care of myself, and like all these things that we're supposed to be able to do as adults. And it feels even weird saying that that's not true, because it feels very true. But the situation it is not who I am, but it is what the result of the patterns I've created in my life is. And it's good because it means I can do this, and it means I can understand other people, so it's all good. But we attach ourselves to these ideas about success and status and material wealth because society teaches us that these are a measure of our worth, when in fact no one is worth more than anyone else. People's psyches might be more useful to the planet, other people's psyches might be more detrimental, but the fact of the matter is we who we are all the witness of what we're doing and what's going on around us. Just the witness. But we think that's the measures of our worth, and when our worth is challenged, we get ashamed. Shame sucks, man. Shame sucks. We get regretful, and that's another one that really sucks. Regrets are things that I hold on to. Maybe we'll even do an entire day on regrets next week. Because regrets suck. So we have to become aware of these social conditioning that we have been conditioned with, right? And letting go of these things can help free ourselves from societal expectations that don't serve our true happiness. For instance, the living on my parents' floor thing. I gotta let it go. And I feel like once I do, I will not only be more happy, but more able to move on, and better things will happen so that I can get my own place. But if I'm doing it for that reason, it's not gonna work. So that is our 25-minute video on an overview of what we're gonna be talking about the next week or so. And I hope that you found this worthy of your listening pleasure. That sentence doesn't really make a lot of sense, but I hope you either enjoyed it or got a lot out of it, or both. So I'm just gonna say that even if you're holding on to shit that makes you unhappy, you can always choose to have a grateful day.